Jonathan Johnson, Interim CEO of Overstock.com. Thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Bob, thanks for having me back.
Former Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne recently stepped down after an episode that I think caught a lot of people off guard. What happened to Patrick Byrne?
Well, Patrick's been our founder and CEO at Overstock for 2 decades. That's a long time to hold that position. He founded and built a great company. He's been talking about the next chapter in his life for some time to me and to other members of our board. He recently came out with what I would call a whistleblowing against certain government agencies. That news came out. I think it was maybe a precipitating factor for this decision, but it was certainly not the primary factor.
One of the most surprising things about what happened with Patrick Byrne recently is that he came out and said he was part of the FBI investigation into the Clintons and into Russian collusion. Do you believe him? And why would it be Patrick Byrne being used by the FBI in that kind of a investigation?
So I have a long history with Patrick. I've worked with him on investigations that involve Wall Street manipulation, where both he and I dealt with FBI and other federal agents and provided information that led to arrests. I don't know all the particulars about his working for the FBI with the Clinton campaign and or the Trump campaign, but I've worked enough with Patrick that when he says something, I believe it. And sometimes it sounds extraordinary, like it did when he was asserting that there was a lot of criminal activity on Wall Street. That's what he said in 2005, 6, and 7, and people said he was crazy. And then 2008 and 9, it proved to be true. Here in 2019, he's blowing the whistle on some government agencies. I think we'll find out much sooner than 3-4 years down the line that that was true.
So I take it the episode involving Patrick Byrne and the Clinton investigation and the Russian collusion investigation, that chapter is not over yet. Is that correct?
Well, I suspect it's not over. He's telling a story. How it plays out will be actually for people at the Department of Justice and otherwise to figure out.
Where is that investigation going now?
Boy, that's not something I know. You know, as someone who's been his business colleague and focused on running Overstock, both its online retail business and its fledgling blockchain business, that's not something I was overly involved with. So I certainly can't speak to that in particular because it involves, you know, the Department of Justice and others. I wouldn't even pretend to know how to answer that question.
Let's step back in time for just a moment. You alluded to the investigation of Wall Street corruption that both you and Patrick had been involved with with the FBI. What exactly happened there? Did the FBI approach you? Did you approach them? And what did they ask you to do?
Well, we approached them because we'd come across information that we thought was important. There were people engaged in manipulative trading. We provided information over a series of many meetings. They followed up on the information, and ultimately there were people that were arrested and went to jail.
Based on your contributions to that investigation, is that correct?
Based, at least in part, on those contributions, absolutely.
So in investigating the Clintons campaign and the Russian collusion issues with the Trump campaign, did the FBI approach you guys or did you go to them?
Well, let's be clear. This isn't a you guys thing. This is something Patrick was doing on his own. I just mentioned the other one because I know Patrick's had a pre-existing relationship with the FBI and government agencies. This is one that because it doesn't involve Overstock, I don't know how that relationship started and how it proceeded.
Were you aware of it at the time it was going on?
I was not. You know, ultimately, before Patrick decided to step away from Overstock, he did let Overstock's board of directors, of which I'm a member, know. So it was something I was familiar with before he left, but not much before he left.
Were you surprised when he said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to step away? I mean, here's the founder of the company, the president and CEO, longtime board member, and he is now stepping away from his baby. Were you surprised when he said that?
Well, I was surprised. That said, this is something Patrick's talked about for a long time. To be a founder or CEO of a company is exhausting work. And Patrick was and is larger than life. He was a key part of Overstock's culture. I think that's wearing over time. He's mentioned to me many times before, there'll be a day when I step away, and sometimes he would say that day is sooner than later. It never really materialized until this. So the fact that it actually happened was surprising, but I think it says this about his view of the company. He would not have stepped away if he didn't think the company's business was in a strong and good place, and if he didn't think that the management team at Overstock was a great management team able to carry out the vision that he set for the company over all these years.
When he made his announcement, there was a dramatic reaction on Wall Street to Overstock's stock price. I think it dropped like a third in price, something along those lines. In light of everything that has happened with Patrick coming up with this story and ultimately stepping away, what has happened to Overstock's overall health as a company, the morale, the confidence, investor confidence, the stock price, all of that? What has happened since then?
So the business is strong. The business is good. The stock price doesn't affect the sales of the business, the way we operate, our finding good product, our advertising good product, our shipping good product, our making our customers happy. Morale is still good at the company. You know, there was a seismic shift when Patrick let the company know he was leaving, but the next day people are at work, they're working hard, they're doing their jobs. I think Overstock is in great shape. Where the stock price goes will ultimately depend on how I, as the CEO, and my colleagues at the company perform. Do we do the blocking and tackling that delights customers and they find Overstock a great place to shop and do what they do?
You currently have the title of Interim CEO, and we have read that the company is looking internationally for someone to take Patrick Byrne's place. Could that be you?
Boy, I sure think it will be me. You know, I've been the president of Overstock and its retail business for 5 years. Most recently, for more than 3 years, I've been the president of our blockchain-focused business. When you look for people who understand both retail and this emerging blockchain technology, it's a pretty thin bench. Add on top of that, I know Overstock's culture. I've been part of building it from a small startup to what it is today. I hope to be the CEO without interim in the title. But I think the board has made a prudent decision. This was relatively sudden news. I think boards, and I'm a member of our board, should make sure they're appointing the right person and take some time to do that. I intend to prove I am that right person while I run the company as the interim CEO.
Certainly, Patrick had his vision for Overstock.com, and I would imagine that your vision is pretty similar. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be in the position you're in right now. What would you do differently going forward as the CEO of Overstock.com?
So I'd say it this way. Patrick and I have been partners for 17 years, you know, shoulder to shoulder, helping to build Overstock. I think Patrick has, if he has been the architect, I have been part of the team that's been the builders. If he has been the captain who set the course of the ship, there's a new hand on the tiller, and that's mine, but the course, I think, is going to be the same. The goal will be to get more wind in the sails, to help the retail business grow, and to really grow our blockchain businesses so that they're providing products using that new technology that will change and improve lives just like the internet did 2 and 3 decades ago.
Amazon is everybody's competitor now, and you and Amazon go head to head in many, many categories. What is the key to catching up and surpassing Amazon in all of the metrics that are important in your industry?
So in the retail business, certainly Amazon is as big as they get. We think we serve a customer that Amazon doesn't serve, and those are people shopping for home decor. Selling couches and beds is different than selling books and toothbrushes. That's something that we've mastered, over a decade ago. We think we are the premium place on the internet to get great prices for great home decor products, and we're really focused on home. Overstock is all about the home.
Do you see the company ever expanding out? I mean, Amazon started out with books, and then expanded from there. Is Overstock on that kind of a trajectory, do you think?
Well, we've been broader, and I think we've found this niche that works really well in our retail business. But Bob, as we work to expand out, we're really a technology company first and foremost. We were an early e-commerce pioneer. We were the first company to develop a third-party dropship fulfillment, something that's now known as a marketplace, which Amazon copied. We're cutting edge in machine learning and artificial intelligence in the retail business. Where I think we will expand that will differentiate us is what we're doing with companies using blockchain technology to advance a new, different technology that's going to change lives like the internet did.
You keep referring to blockchain technology, and I need for you to, for the layman, explain exactly what that is. Blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and those things that come along in that genre. What are you talking about?
So I think the easiest way to explain blockchain is to go back and talk about what we used to refer to the internet as. We used to call it the information superhighway. And the internet became a way for us to transfer information freely and frictionlessly. When we use the internet to send an email or a video or a picture or a website, we're always sending a copy of something. Well, that doesn't work when we're transferring assets. If I'm casting my vote, no one wants a copy of it. If I'm sending you $1 or a stock certificate, no one wants a copy of those things. Blockchain technology you might refer to as a digital asset superhighway. It allows us to freely and frictionlessly transfer digital assets. Cryptocurrency is the first killer app in that regard, without intermediary middlemen that add time, cost, risk of mistake, risk of mischief. What the internet did for the free flow of information, I think blockchain technology will do for the free flow of digital assets.
Explain, for those who don't understand, explain cryptocurrency and where it gets its value and how it is used on the internet and in everyday life.
So cryptocurrency is another form of payment. Probably the most well-known cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. Where is it used? It can be used at Overstock.com. You can come and buy sheets in a duvet set from Overstock spending Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. It's a digital form of money that doesn't require a bank intermediary or a credit card processor intermediary in between you and me. It's almost like digital cash. If I have cash and give you a $10 bill, we don't need banks in between us. I can give you a digital currency as in Bitcoin, and we don't need anybody in between us. It gets its value in that people think it's worth something. At Overstock, we think it's worth trading for sheets and sofas. And we say how much Bitcoin a sheet or a sofa costs, and you say, seems like a good deal to me, that's how I'm going to spend it.
How do I, as a layman, get Bitcoin? And can I transfer dollars to Bitcoin? How do I get Bitcoin to buy something from Overstock?
Absolutely. You can download what's called a digital wallet. There's a lot of different ones that let you use a credit card or your bank account to purchase Bitcoin. One of the digital wallets that I really like is something called the T0 wallet. But there are other ones out there. You buy Bitcoin with cash, and then you can spend it. It gives you access to digital currency without having a bank account going forward. You don't need a credit card or a debit card, but you can just pay with your digital wallet.
Do you foresee a day when cryptocurrency, say Bitcoin, is used more in commerce than, say, the US dollar is?
Bob, I do. I think that happens last in the United States and probably first in developing countries where large portions of their population are unbanked. In the Caribbean, 40% of the population is unbanked. South America, that's 70%. In Africa, it's more than 90%. These are people that, because they don't have a bank account, must operate in cash. They're left out of the 21st century economy. Those countries will adopt digital currency sooner. In fact, we have a company in the Overstock family called BIT that's working with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank so that there is a fiat digital currency, a fiat Bitcoin, if you will, issued by a central bank that the people in the 8 nations of the Eastern Caribbean will be able to use as if it were paper dollars.
We are in the middle of a fairly intense trade war between the United States and China. How is that affecting Overstock.com?
Bob, that's something we watch carefully. Over the last several years, much of our manufacturing and our suppliers' manufacturing has begun to move away from China. China's become more expensive and frankly more difficult to work with over the years. So had this trade war blossomed 4 or 5 years ago, I think it would have had a significant impact. Today, not so much. We continue to watch and see what it does, but for now, it's really having a minimal impact on Overstock.
And what about the tariffs between the two countries? Retaliatory though they may be, are they not affecting Overstock.com?
Not much, mostly because we do much less manufacturing, or our suppliers do much less manufacturing in China than used to be.
Let me ask you a philosophical question, and because you have run for public office in the past, I'm hoping that you've given this some thought. What should be the ideal relationship between the government, both domestic and internationally, and retail business and commerce? What is that perfect balance between the two?
Boy, yeah, Bob, you know that I'm a light touch government person. I think the less regulation we have, the better. I think the less interference with business, the better. You know, if businesses are behaving badly, laws get put in place. But I think it's better when laws are clear and we're not creating laws through enforcement, but there are clear lines so that those of us that want to kind of color within those lines and obey the law know exactly where they are.
What are the drivers and the impediments to Overstock.com's business, and how do you take advantage of those drivers and minimize the impediments?
Well, driving is buying, that our drivers are continuing to find great product, to cut costs out of our supply chain and make sure we're delighting our customers with great delivery and a website that's easy to navigate. We do that. That's what we're focused on every single day at Overstock. Impediments, you know, the overall economy. People don't shop when they don't feel like they're flush. Online advertising is so much driven by some of the huge tech giants at Google and Facebook. You know, we have to adapt when they change an algorithm and how things are served up to their different customers. We need to adapt to that. So we're always looking and trying to be at the cutting edge on those fronts.
Even before this whole episode with Patrick Byrne came down, certainly you, as one of the leaders of Overstock.com, had looked into the future and have been planning and strategizing. Where do you see, now that Patrick is gone and you're in the driver's seat, where do you see Overstock.com 10 years from now?
I mentioned earlier that Overstock has always viewed itself as a technology company more than a retail company. I think 10 years from now, we're going to be using whatever the latest cutting edge technology is. Today, that's using machine learning and artificial intelligence to make the Overstock.com website easier to navigate and smarter as it interfaces with our customers. It means building applications on blockchain technology that will make it easier for people to conduct business with each other without intermediary middlemen. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I think things like blockchain will be as ubiquitous as the internet is. What the next new technology is, I'm not sure, but I know Overstock will be using it and be on the cutting edge of using it.
Even now, the retail industry is still trying to get used to the balance between brick and mortar stores and their rivals on the internet. Where do you see that balance finally evening out?
We talk about this a lot at Overstock. We're a pure play internet company. We only have a website. We think that ultimately commerce is probably best done through what the industry calls omni-channel, where there's brick and mortars tied to a website. And you'll see a lot of our competitors have gone that way. True brick and mortars have become brick and click or omni-channel. I think ultimately there's some balance between having physical stores, maybe to return things or pick things up for a lesser shipping cost, and having just a website makes sense. Websites, e-commerce sites have the advantage that you can centralize your distribution and be much more efficient, but you lose some of the advantages of touching and feeling and ease of pickup and return.
For those of us laymen out here in layman's world, I think of running to the grocery store to pick up a cake mix, or going to the hardware store to get a screw that wasn't, and then being able to run back because it wasn't quite the right size, and trying to transfer that to an e-commerce mindset, I think is, I mean, is that where we are headed, where, oh, it's the wrong screw, I need to send it back by drone to the warehouse, and in 15 minutes they'll send me the right screw? Or are we still going to be able to run down to the hardware store and get the right size screw or the cake mix or whatever it might be?
I think there's going to be a balance. There's always going to be people that want to go to the store to pick up their cake mix, or they're going to want to go to the restaurant to pick up their to-go order. But we're also going to have people that would rather get on an app, use their Uber Eats or their DoorDash to have everything come to them. I think that's why there's a balance between the two. I would never say we'll be purely an e-commerce society or we'll be purely a brick and mortar society. I think there's somewhere in between, and that in between probably feels more virtual today or tomorrow than it does today.
The inland port is a big topic here in Utah right now. Where do you stand on the inland port? Do we need it, and how would it affect Overstock.com?
So Bob, I've got to admit, I haven't spent now that I'm not in the day-to-day of running for politics, I haven't thought as much about the inland port as I might have. I do think having a place that brings duty-free product or cheaper product closer to us makes for easy delivery, makes for a cheaper supply chain. So in theory, I think the ideas of inland ports or enterprise zones make sense. Whether the way we're doing it in Utah, where it's the state government that seems to be dictating to the city government what it does with its land, that seems a little fishy to me, but I gotta say, I haven't spent as much time studying that as I'm back in the business of running a business.
So in terms of the inland port, and the new phrase is the crossroads of the world, how would that affect Overstock.com and the way it does business if the crossroads of the world were right here in Salt Lake County?
Anything that makes it easier for us to bring product to Salt Lake, where we're headquartered, is going to be good for Overstock. It will be good for our business. That said, we're trying to locate our warehouses and distribution centers around the country to be as close to our customers is possible. Our headquarters is here. It's still the hub of our business, but it's not the only place where we're bringing product.
Is there anything else you want to share with us as the new interim CEO of Overstock.com that would enlighten our viewers as to your company's mission, the situation with Patrick Byrne departing, and the future?
So I've been with Overstock for 17 years. I've never thought we've had a brighter future than we do today. The e-commerce business is doing well. Our technology business with blockchain has got a marvelous set of companies in the portfolio that are doing things from voting to monitoring supply chain to helping stock certificates transfer more quickly. The future is bright. What Patrick set in motion, the current team, is just going to accelerate.
Jonathan Johnson, Interim CEO of Overstock.com. Thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
Thank you, Bob.